Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sustain Our Software. Today we have Eric Berry.
Hey there.
And me, Richard Littauer, and a fantastic guest, Bastien Guerry.
Hi, nice meeting you.
Have you been thinking about building a mobile application, but you're a web developer and you're not really sure you want to learn Swift or Objective-C or Kotlin or Java or any of the languages that are used natively by those platforms? Well, you should check out React Native. React Native is a platform managed by Facebook. You can share a lot of your state management and other logic code between your applications. And we have a podcast that talks about all of the issues and all of the advantages of using React Native. And you can check that out at reactnativeradio.com.
Bastien, you're calling in today from Paris, correct?
Yes, Paris, France, Friday.
Awesome. Could you tell us a bit about what you do there and what's going on in your life?
So what's going on in my life? I suppose I'm here because I used to be the maintainer of orgmode, which is a GNU Emacs module that is quite famous. And I say I used to be because I'm not active as a maintainer now. I'm just the release manager. And Nicolas Goaziou is the new de facto maintainer. And so my experience as a maintainer was from 2011 until 2015. And from that experience, which was great, and I'm still very happy about what we did, I've been very into the topics about how to maintain maintainers, how to sustain the efforts of the free software community, how we go beyond just lobbying users, governments, and so on, and how we tackle the very hot topic of the economics of all this. So, and now I'm employed by the French administration as someone who helps public agencies to use more free software and to produce more free software. The main pain point being that as any public agency, we have a lot of difficulties to hire the right people and even more the right open source contributors. So this is my main focus right now.
That's amazing. I've never used orgmode, and I've always felt like less of a person for not having used it.
You're not.
I entered the world with Vim, and that was a mistake, but it's how it is.
It's fine.
Oh, man.
When you say you work for the French government, is that for ETA Lab?
Well, there is this administration called the DINSIC, which is kind of public agency who helps other ministries to do anything about IT stuff. So not just develop software, but also all the network infrastructures for the public agencies. So I entered this administration being part of a program called Entrepreneurs d'intérêt général, like public interest entrepreneurs. And this was inspired by a Presidential Innovation Fellows program from the US a few years ago. And the Presidential Innovation Fellows program was itself inspired by the healthcare trauma, like big IT project in the administration cost a lot, and they are like nightmares. So every country has been learning from all these failures, and France has some failures too in the past. And there is this innovation program when we try to hire the right people working in small agile team to fix precise problems. So from there, I was really the open source guy in the Innovation Fellows promotion, and then I convinced the administration to hire me as a free software officer.
That's amazing. First, as an American, I'm really glad that the world can learn from our failures, particularly in this case.
We have the same failure.
It's very hard for governments to get tech right. The healthcare thing here, I think it was 2013 or so, was just monumentally messed up. I heard that the team of presidential fellows were described as parachute coders who would just parachute into a problem, but then laptop away and the fires would all go out. So that's really cool that France also has something. Thank you for explaining that. DINSIC is Direction du Numérique de l'État or something?
Well, even French guys don't know the full name, so
okay.
This is whatever you said. It's like direction, anything about digital in the public sector.
Okay, I'll try not to speak French from here on out because clearly my accent's really bad.
It's okay.
Thank you. That's amazing. So, how did you get involved with orgmode?
Well, I'm not a developer. I grew up as a philosopher, studying philosophy, and I enjoyed it very much. And around 2000, there was this big hot topic in philosophy of science about patent on medicines and generic medicines and all that stuff, and how the economics of this was important for the decades to come. And I learned about patenting software because there was this huge debate in Europe whether you use software patents or not. I started to study this, and I was a bit of a geek, and I used to try various Linux distributions. So one day I had Emacs on my computer. I had no internet. I got the internet thanks to some guy I met in the metro, in the tube, who gave me the line to recompile my kernel. And I'm definitely grateful to this guy. And when I had both Emacs and the internet, I just spent hours amazed that everything was here and that the main message was, this is for you. You can hack it. You can adapt it to your needs. You can do whatever you want. Before that, I was just stealing software. I was spending a few years, trying to find my ways in software that I wanted to use. And I was, feeling very special by, stealing software online, piracy. Yep. I guess many people have done that, and I won't go to prison. But it was a shock, to discover the main message on Emacs saying, this is free software, and we give it to you. So I felt the need to give back, as many people did, I guess. This is still important to me, this kind of ethical relation to the software, because nowadays I have this feeling that I have this discussion with many friends saying, well, open source is just about money now. So it's not about ethics. It's just about, you use it, you even give it back. You're just the useful idiots of capitalism, to say it in a very short sentence. And I feel hurt when I hear this, because open source and free software has been made by a lot of people giving their free time to fix things on the internet, and fix software, to adapt it. And sharing a single line of code is always, for me, an ethical act. So I went from philosophy and debates and thinking about where the world goes for the next century, to thinking, okay, the software is going to be everywhere and it has to be free, and Richard Stallman has a point, and to using Emacs more and more for anything about writing, from writing nothing but just text and PHP. So my first software was actually for my girlfriend, so that she could write her thesis more easily, not using Microsoft Word, but using plain text and exporting to LaTeX. From that, we got separated, and I guess maybe many developers will have the same story. And the day I was not with her, I spent all my days with Emacs, and Emacs is my longest relationship so far. And I'm happy with that, and she's fine, by the way.
She hasn't let you down, huh?
Yeah.
I hear she's complicated, though.
No, she's not. She's a great person, but she's still happy that I taught her what was plain text. She's a linguist, actually. She knows.
I thought we were.
Eric was talking about Emacs.
I was talking about Emacs.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Well, she's great. She's going to be here for a long time. Yeah.
Okay.
Bastien, we actually have a very similar path to coding. I was a linguist. I started coding by building LaTeX formatters, BSD files and then I ended up realizing this was really fun, and then doing coding with Python for my thesis, and now here I am. You said earlier, so you're not a developer. I'm not a developer. But you also maintain a massive project, and you just use the phrase recompile my kernel. So I'm curious, how do you justify not being a developer?
Okay, I'm a social guy, so recompiling was just blindly trusting this random Uber geek in the metro who gave me this line of mod probe, whatever. I'm not afraid of breaking things. So I break a lot of things. I'm good at breaking things, and I'm sometimes good at fixing some of them. But it's important to me that I'm not a developer. I mean, now, of course, I continue to develop things that I've been learning for the last 20 years because it has always been a hobby. And I think and we're going to discuss this later on about maintenance and the economics of all this, but I think we should always have this door open to hobbyists, which was the very point of Richard Stallman when he started the free software movement, saying, okay, the community is dying. We have to start again the community, and hobbyist will be my first help in building this. So, and also maintaining this big project. I was the average developer in the project. I learned so much from others. orgmode connects with other languages.
Yep.
So people writing the Python code to the Emacs code so that orgmode can, execute Python code. So it means that we have Python experts helping me understand how this Emacs code should work. And same for Clojure, and same for even Java and other languages that I don't know. So Emacs is really fantastic because it's an entry point for all the computer science culture around here. And other people are way better than me. I was good at dealing with social relations on a mailing list in a peaceful way.
Yep.
And that's what is expected from maintainers. And I was good at ignoring my financial crisis and spending 3 hours every day on this because it was really a passion for me.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate the spirit of humility that you have, because I think that's really important as a maintainer to be like, I'm just trying here to figure out what I can do. I'm not the most important person in the project. It's just...
Well, first of all, Carsten Dominic is the first developer of orgmode, so he spent years on developing it to the way it was when he gave the maintenance to me in 2011. And Carsten is a fantastic developer. Like, he has really great idea. He has a coding velocity that no one can really match. And so I was forced to be very humble when he asked me. And also, this humility is not just a personal feeling. It's also something that you need to make sure that people feel they have a value they could bring to the project.
Yep.
It's not about, So that's why the floor has been always very low. The contribution flow has been as low as possible. So if you have to fix a typo, okay, great. And I will explain to you how to rewrite your patch. You're going to do it because you want to learn. This is a learning process. But I will just take the time to teach this to you. So this learning and teaching relation has been also very important for me. I've been learning how to code like this. And this is something I wanted to give back, as the spirit of the mailing list has been very focused on not just being nice, but being useful to others.
Yeah, I hear you say that you want to give back. I've been on one of your blogs, bcg.fr, and you say that you donate to free software and free culture, and you list how much you donate. Which is, I think that's fantastic. So donate to free culture and free software, put a link in there.
Yeah, you can see I don't give that much.
Yeah, so what I wanted to ask, actually, because you mentioned earlier about ethics and capitalism. Since you're a philosopher, and so you thought about this deeper than I have, how do you balance market forces against personal ethics? I mean, don't you feel that your personal ethics are dependent on your position, on your being able to, say, take 3 hours to work on something and not have to work during those 3 hours?
I'm not sure I completely understood the question.
Okay, sorry. So what's wrong when your friends say that you're just being used by capitalism and open source is all about money? Where do they get it wrong? Because it seems to me that you have this immense privilege, and so you're able to put in this work, and you're able to ignore your finances for a while.
Yeah. I think they are wrong empirically, in the sense that some people continue to do this as a patient just because they want to share their software and just because they think it's important, and no matter the money attached to it. Some people just do it for the thrill of new technology, innovation, learning new things, and that's okay. And I'm always been an advocate of sustainability and even through finance and solid stakeholders taking part of the open source economy. Because I think the more stakeholders and the more companies you have supporting free software, then the more free software developers getting paid you have. But I continue to think the door, as I said before, the door should be open for hobbyists and people who just don't have any financial interest in this. Where they have a point is that, as I often said, it's not because we have business models for open source that those business models are the right ones. We have many open source companies around here, but we don't have that much money going to the editors, to the one who create the software. We have a lot of money going to the one who install the software, adapt it for other companies. And in France, we call this integrateur, like integrators of
Integrators,
solutions. Yeah, integrators. Yeah. And I wish more money would go to the people writing the software and to the companies taking the risk of building new solutions, so that we wouldn't have things like Redis Labs forced to use another license for some use of their software, or even MongoDB not being enticed to use a server-side license to prevent other usage of their software. They could continue to be as free as they want without the threat of bigger companies threatening their own models.
How do you see that playing out? Because I see that as well, where a lot of the projects that generate funding do tend to be those that are a bit higher profile, and it doesn't allow for those funds to necessarily bleed down into the dependencies. John Schlinkert, one of our panelists who isn't on here today, he maintains over 1,000 open source repos, some of which get 30 million downloads a day. And yet he's not getting much funding at all for those. So how do you see that happening?
Well, some of the efforts in the last years have been about bringing more transparency about libraries dependencies. I'm thinking about libraries.io initiative, also the backyourstack.com initiative by Open Collective and stuff like that. And some recent analysis were made on this, and that was really interesting because you could see that the donation model sometimes work for very well-known projects like Vue.js and other projects. But there is this paradox on that very low-level infrastructure project that all the other modules depend on are not supported enough. And the more deeper they are in the layers of dependencies, sometimes the less attention they have from other people. So this brings the question, I think for now, donation is really dependent on fame, and the courage to ask for money. Like, if you identify that you're going to fund, or that you want to live your entire day on donations and continue to code for free software, and then you go online and say, I want to do this. And yet, if you're famous enough as a maintainer or as a contributor, then you can get the funding. But what about all this deeper layer where, as you mentioned, lots of software? So I think one first step would be to identify in those deeper layer whether funding is needed or not, and to just ask the developers and the companies who develop these layers to go out and say, yeah, we need money to continue to maintain this. And which is not sure for all the software. Some software, maybe they are just done and they continue to be used outside by many people, and we don't need that much funding except for the everyday routine of fixing important bugs and stuff like that. But for deep projects that are a lot of efforts going on, we need to bring more than just transparency. So to summarize, I think Back Your Stack is going the right direction into giving an overview about what project is funded or not, but we also have kind of an architecture view about where is it in the chain of dependency, and very deep in this chain, how can we help strategic projects? But I don't have any magic wand to bring that.
I agree with you completely. And you have an event coming up that you're, I believe, co-organizing, right? That focuses on these issues.
You mean Fund the Code?
Well, I'd love to hear more about Fund the Code. I'd love to hear about the Maintainers Conference coming up.
Oh, Maintainence Conference, yes. So the website for this is themaintainers.org. This is a group of scholars, sociologists, software developers, anyone who wants to have, the focus placed on maintenance in general, not just for software. It's also beyond software. Like when you speak about the economy of the commons, for example, and when you read Elinor Ostrom, this is really not about software. This is about maintenance of ecological goods and community taking care of stuff. Also, so this group is really focused on various topics, and software is one of them. And I encourage people to subscribe to the mailing list and to go to the conference, which is going to be, I won't be there, sadly, but the conference is going to be in, we can check on the website later.
I think it's in Washington, D.C. between October 6th and 9th.
Yeah, exactly. So Mehdi Mejawi will be the chair for the software track, and I expect a lot from this track. So there is an open source software maintenance topic, which is really hot right now on Twitter and everywhere. And this topic takes place in another bigger sociological topic about who takes care of things in our everyday life and who gets paid about this. Like, think about mothers everywhere in the world. Most of them don't get paid for what they do. And what they do is really routine daily maintenance about homes, about education, children, and everything. So how do you recognize this very hot topic of taking care in any domain? So there's going to be a specific track about software, and it will be very important to maybe gather around a few specific topics that I don't know yet, but also to place and to step back and place this in perspective with other topics.
It's fantastic. I love the analogy that you made with mothers. That resonates really well with me. My wife is helping raise 3 children, and those 3 kids are kind of a nightmare sometimes. And I finish work, and I work in my basement, so I always hear like the yelling and screaming going on if there is. But I go upstairs after work is over, and I compare my day to her day and the amount of mental stress that I've gone through versus the amount of mental stress that she's gone through. And every single day I'm like, okay, where can I pick up because you need a break?
Yeah. I mean, it's just not mothers, it's also women in general, and the fact that they are underpaid in every country, which is like so sad and so universal. And I think maintenance, bringing the light on the maintenance topic, is part of the efforts that we need to make to recognize works that we don't take for work right now, or that are out of the classical vision of the economy, and part of an ongoing global efforts to speak more about infrastructures and long-term vision about maintenance. I remember that this infrastructure topic was brought on the US TV there was a very funny, was it on the Saturday Night Show? There was
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. So there was this, how do you call this? When you announce a movie, it was a fake one, and the movie was called Infrastructure. If you've not seen it, it's so funny. And it's all about the fact that infrastructure is never sexy, right? If you try to make a hero movie about infrastructure, it's not going to be funny. It's going to be so boring that everyone wants to escape. But I think, and it resonates a lot with my experience as a maintainer, 90% of my time went into fixing boring stuff, not doing very exciting new features or whatever. That's also why it was okay to have an average developer on board.
Have you thought about building iOS apps? We have a podcast that talks about the iOS development community, Swift, and all of the things that are involved in that. You can go find it at iPhreakshow.com. That's iPhreaks show.com.
So you mentioned that you convinced the administration to give you a role. How did you do that? I'm curious.
Well, there is this law in France about public information, which was targeting open data first. So the law is from 2016 and says basically that as a public agency, if you produce data, you have to open it and use an open data license to share it with the world. Within this law, there was a few lines about source code saying that source code is also public information, meaning that as an administration, if you produce source code, you have to share it with the world the same way you have to share the open data. So everyone was happy with this line in the free software community, but I was wondering, okay, who's in charge with explaining administration what are free software licenses? What is free software? What are free software licenses? What are the licenses they are allowed to use? In what condition can they publish their own source code? Is a zip file okay as a mean of publication? Should they go on GitHub, GitLab, or should they host their own, Gitea instance or whatever? So, and I found out that there was a lot of familiarity with this question among a lot of people where I worked, but no one was in charge. And in the administration, if no one is in charge, then you have no one to blame. And that's the way of, So I wanted to be this guy who can take the heat, also by the free software people who say, well, administration is not doing enough for free software. Who's the guy in charge and who should we shoot next? So that he does the job of not buying Google stuff, Microsoft stuff, and so on. So the topic of buying software, proprietary software on the machines of public of civil servants is very hot because there is a lot of money involved and people get really angry when they see this. But for me, this is not the main topic. The main topic is about bringing more developers into the administration who know about open source, we know how to use it, and we know how to publish their own software. It's to build kind of a public commons about software that we can share with other countries. There is a very interesting initiative which is called the Public Code Foundation. This is about producing data scheme to harmonize the way we present public code to other countries. So it's just a YAML file with some constants that you can use to declare, okay, this is public code, and we, as the Ministry of Finance or as the Ministry of Education, we publish this code for anyone to use. And so we are very at an early stage at this, but the Public Code Foundation is something to follow, and also the work by the Italian team Digitale, which is using this YAML file to produce a new catalog of code they release. This is not yet mutualization. We are at the stage of we are just trying to harmonize the practices of public agencies who publish code. And also the US with the code.gov has been an inspiration for this.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about the Fund the Code project.
Yeah. So when I was really into orgmode maintenance, I was starting to feel the kind of a fatigue of spending 3 hours and not getting paid, and I was unemployed at the time. Also, I was trying to find new clients, and all this was a mess. I was dreaming about building a company for crowdsourcing was really hot at the time, 2013. So everyone was talking about crowdfunding. Crowdfunding was really hot at the time, and everyone was building a new company to crowdfund a social project or artistic project. And I said, okay, we need to crowdfunding for open source software. So I started with this idea, and I found someone who started the same idea. So I was like, okay, I don't need to start another one. And we've been thinking of something that we could do together. And the first name of this project was Hug a Dev, like hug a developer. We said we need to help developers ask for donations. Like the first step is to let them go out of the basement and say, this is what I do. And without this step, you're always going to have a problem. So Hugdev was not a good name. And we started with another bad name, which was Hackathon, like a hackathon, but with donations, which is Hackathon. And now we stabilize with the name Found the Code, which is more straightforward.
I'm a fan of the name, by the way. I run a company called Code Fund, so
okay.
I very much like the name.
That's a very good one. I'm very grateful to Xavier Daman from Open Collective and former CEO of Storify. And he told us about the Storify story, saying, well, without a good name, you go nowhere. So have a good name. Let's start with this. Hackathon is horrible. So Found the Code is just about this. Another problem that I identify is that when I received donations from, orgmode supporters, it was always the same people and it was always individuals. And I felt, come on. I mean, I'm sure there are Googlers among the users. Maybe Google could just send me, $20 or whatever. Why just the individuals? And I knew that bureaucracy would prevent them from asking to the hierarchy and stuff like that. So the very first idea was that we want live events. We want developers to talk with users and with people who don't know about free software. And then we don't want the audience to spend a penny. It must be free evenings. And so the people who are going to give the money are sponsors, and sponsors are going to be companies. So with these three pillars we started, we thought, okay, we're going to see if we find companies to help us, and we found them. They were very glad to give 500 euros or 1,000. We don't go beyond because we just need 5,000 euros per night. So they give 500 or 1,000. There is no gold or silver sponsor or whatever. It's just you are a sponsor. You like free software and you want to help maintainers maintain free software. And then when we have the money, we call for participation for software maintainers or even just contributors. They spend 10 minutes explaining the audience what they do and why their software needs some funding or just some symbolic funding, because we pick up 10 projects and we spend 3 hours explaining about these 10 projects. We make a video capture. So the funders go out and they have something to share on the internet, on Twitter. They have 10 minutes of presentation. And over the years, the presentation have been really, the quality has been better and better. And then we have the audience voting for the software they want to support and giving the money of the sponsors. And that's it. So it worked. For the last 3 years, we had one Found the Code per year. And we are changing the model for next year. We don't want the organizers to be always me and the 2 other friends. So we're going to start an open collective account where we're going to centralize the funding and we're going to found organizers for other Found the Code evenings. So we're going to try to contact new organizations that wants to organize Found the Code nights. And then we're going to centralize the money on this open collective account, sponsoring other events. And we are starting this in September. And we have already 2 or 3 organizations who wants to start, and giving them, just 1,000 and 2,000 euros, make them confident that they just have to deal with finding project and finding the 100 people for the audience.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely great. I love it.
How do people get involved in this? So, for example, Code Fund is an ethical advertising platform that targets developers. I mean, is that something that we could do to help, where we could spread the message for these efforts?
Yeah, you're already spreading the message by having me right now.
I suppose we are. Look at that.
No, it's very nice. Yeah, when we have this open collective account, then anyone will be welcome to make donations for the ongoing funding that we need. And then we're going to be very transparent about where are the next Fund the Code nights or evenings. We're going to be very experimental at first, like having maybe 3 Fund the Code events for the next year. And if it works, if we are able to really provide good guidance to future organizers, and that we are going to open it to anyone. There is no trademark. We don't want to control any trademark. So tomorrow anyone can start a Fund the Code event. But what we find is that organizers need to have a little boost at the start, like a financial boost, because finding the sponsors is not easy. So we capitalized with good relations with the sponsors for the last 3 years, and they are okay funding other events in other cities and other countries. And if you are a free software, or not even a free software, but some tech guys and willing to bring focus on free software and on donation, just get in touch with us, send an email, and we're going to see how we can help you organize this event.
What email address should they send a request to?
Yeah, contact@fundthecode.org.
So you mentioned that it was easy to find sponsors to give 500, 1,000. How did you do that?
Okay. I was not alone. There is this guy, Louis-David Beignet, a very nice and very efficient guy when it comes to finding the right people to support us. So just 3 or 4 contacts were enough to bootstrap the first event. And also, he was the editor of a book that we published in 2013, which is called Open Models, OPEN, and models, models.com. Not sure if it's still online. No, it's not this one. Or maybe .fr. Yeah, .fr.
Yeah, openmodels.fr.
Yeah. So the book was about explaining about the economy of not just open source, but anything open. It was to reach, CEO, CTO, citizens, anyone. And through the selling of the paperback copies of the book, then we were able to finance the next Fund the Code. So it was kind of a, recursive bootstrapping of the event and the book financing the event. So I'm not doing the commercial part, like the marketing and the outreach for new sponsors is dealt with by Louis-David.
It's fantastic.
And we also have Mehdi Mejawi. He was a sponsor for the last Fund the Code last year. And I think in the next coming months, there's going to be a lot of help to let us, get in touch with the right people and new sponsors, or maybe even new countries to organize events, because he's also based in California and he has a lot of contacts with tech companies there. So we surely will count on him to help us spread the word.
Just so the listeners know, we in a previous podcast, we recorded an interview with it was fascinating. Yeah. So one of the things that you talked about that I really like is the idea of asking for money outside of the maintainers, outside of the contributors. Yeah. To me, that's such a strong message that I think needs to be said. That's why I started Code Fund back in the day. That's why this whole idea that we need to sustain each other financially kind of feels like we're all taking $1 out of our wallets and passing it to the person to your right. And that's not a sustainable model. I don't believe so. I applaud you for what you're doing and exposing visibility to these issues. And also you're actually doing something about it. You're actually getting money and putting money in maintainers' pockets. And that's, we all could talk about it all day long, but it's those that do make the difference.
Yeah. About money coming from outside the circle of, people helping each other. Even that stage is important, like having, open source users to help open source developers would be a lot. And then when I say users, I don't want to say just individual users, but companies. So if company using open source would help developers, that would be huge. And so GitHub sponsors started this program where they match your donation. So this is outside money. Like if you give 1,000 through GitHub sponsors. They give 1,000 on top of this, at least for the first year, and at least from what I understood. So this is outside money, and this is good. And before that, we had Google through the Google Summer of Code. This is outside money, not only bringing money to the open source, but bringing new contributors. We may have questions on whether this is the right contributors and the right way to bring new contributors, but I think this is posing very interesting questions. And also, we are at the very, very early years of all these questions. We have a lot of feedback from burnouts of maintainers and experimental approaches. What I find really important to me, at least, is to keep having fun. So Fun the Code was a way to continue to have fun and to meet new people. For example, in the last event in March, we had this developer from Material UI. So I was really surprised to see Material UI coming here and asking for small money. But there are only 3 guys, I guess. And he made a great presentation. And I said, wow, I can see how you're used to be on stage and make presentation. And because your PDF is just perfect. So I said, well, no, this is my first time out. So, I mean, if the guys from Material UI were using Fun the Code to go out for the first time and meet the users and answer questions live, I mean, there are a lot of people that we can, pull out from their basement, I guess.
I'm a big Olivier fan myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So Olivier is the primary maintainer of Material UI, and yeah, he's a fantastic person.
Yeah, he was part of this evening, and he's a fantastic person, but I thought he was really used to give presentations because it was really nice, to the point, timely, and so on. And he said, no, it's actually one of the first times.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Charles Maxwood. You've probably heard me on a lot of the shows on devchat.tv. The language that got me into programming and taught me to love it was Ruby. And eventually I got together with a bunch of my friends and we started the podcast Ruby Rogues. And that's how devchat.tv got its start. Ruby Rogues has been running since 2011 and has had conversations with a lot of people from the wider programming community that you've probably heard of, as well as very focused episodes with people from the Ruby community. If you're doing Ruby, if you love Ruby, if you're building tools in Ruby, then you should check out Ruby Rogues, and you can find it at rubyrogues.com.
All right. I think it's probably a pretty good place to wrap it up. So now it's time for picks, if that's okay with you two, unless you had any unopened questions that you really wanted to get out there.
It's fine with me.
Okay. So this is the part of the show where we just say 3 things that have been meaningful or interesting to us recently, or what we're thinking about. Eric, do you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So this week I've been at the OSCON conference, the Open Source O'Reilly conference, and it was a wonderful experience. I've never been to it before. I've been to several conferences before, but this one was a little bit different. The excitement around open source sustainability was exciting, and I guess one of the picks that I'd like to choose from a group that I met, there's a Software Freedom Conservancy. There's actually a whole bunch of organizations that are trying to help make sure that open source remains open source. But for all of the projects that I talked to and I kind of am aware of, these guys are the real deal. I heard a talk given by, and I can't remember his name, I feel terrible, but he gave this talk on open source sustainability, and he compared it to the movie A Wonderful Life. And so it was a fantastic presentation. Wonderful people there. We're in good company. And then the other pick that I have is, I guess I'll probably leave it that pick. I had another one picked earlier on, but I forgot it. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you. I have 3 picks because show some things. So one of them is Nadia Egball's Tiny Letter, which is just a constant joy whenever I get it. She sends one pretty much around once a month with just what she's been reading and what's going on, and there's always some gem in there. Another one was, I'm not sure if I've shared this before, but Chomsky's On Anarchism, which is a collection of essays by Chomsky on anarchism. And I mean classical anarchism, not as in let's all destroy everything and be chaos, but rather classical libertarianism. So how do we live in a world where people are funded by their own ideals without being hampered, and they're free to be able to create and explore and be hobbyists in code? This really actually was an interesting book for me to read from a software developer perspective. I'm not about to move to New Hampshire, but I really enjoyed it. And then another pick would just be, because talking to Bastien has reminded me, and I was thinking about it yesterday, Shakespeare & Co. If you're ever in Paris, it's my favorite bookstore in Paris. It's right across from Notre Dame, and it's just a really lovely place to go and chill out and sit out front and learn Lebanese Arabic with a bottle of wine and some cigarettes. I speak from experience. So that's my third pick. Bastien, do you have anything you want to share?
Yeah, it's funny because I was trying to think about things to say. And first one would be, I'm glad to give to Closurist together.org. I think it's a very original, steady way to support the Clojure language and ClojureScript ecosystem, which is very new, 10 years ago, very active, very promising, and a lot of questions on whether we should have a web framework and stuff like that. So I encourage people to go and to see how it works. Even if you don't use Clojure, see how Closurist together works and see if you can use the same approach for your own ecosystem and your own language. This is also for me the opportunity to say that I also very much appreciate Rich Heike approach to this debate about funding open source and what is open source and what is the relation with proprietary software. There's been a lot of debate within the Clojure community. I don't delve into it that much, but he's very clear on what are the goals for each project and what are the way to make better contributions. And this is really interesting, and I really appreciate his way of dealing with the debate. The second thing is that last year I discovered Write the Docs. Speaking about maintenance, I think documentation is key, and Write the Docs is an ongoing international effort to bring attention to documentation. So we started the Write the Doc meetup in Paris recently, and it was really nice. So if you don't know Write the Docs, go there and be part of these efforts and go on meetup to find where people talk about documentation. I'm passionate about documentation. Maybe that's why I went to Emacs and orgmode. And my last pick, it's about Shakespeare. I recently read a book by Roger Chartier. He's a French historian about literature. And it's a book about Cardenio. And Cardenio is a figure in Don Quixote novels, in the Cervantes novels Don Quixote. And Cardenio was a play by Shakespeare that we lost. So the whole story about this lost play by Shakespeare, and not just Shakespeare, another one too, Fletcher, is just fascinating. So if there are Shakespeare lovers around here, or people, living at Shakespeare & Co., because I know people live in this library, just check about Cardenio and dive into it. It looks, it's really fascinating.
I'm going to have to read that. I've been in 2 Shakespeare plays this year. I love Shakespeare. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Cardenio has been the lost play, and someone revived it in 1727, pretending that he found the manuscript. And that this was the manuscript of the Cardenio play, and there is a lot of debate around this since then. But yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you so much for being
Thank you for having me.
And hope to see you around. Maybe you get to a CodeFun event, and take care.
Sure. And looking forward questions and discussions online afterwards.
All right. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by Cachefly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with Cachefly. Visit cachefly.com to learn more.